Alysa Liu will not be traveling to Prague. Honestly, that doesn't shock anyone. But if you haven't heard the complete story of how she reached this point, then you're missing one of the most incredible comebacks the sport of figure skating has ever seen. So let's break it down. Just a few weeks ago at the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics, a 20-year-old American skater stepped onto the ice and achieved something no US woman had accomplished in 23 years. She captured gold. And not just any gold medal. She won the individual figure skating gold medal, the most watched and most talked about event of the entire Winter Games. The last time an American woman managed that was when Sarah Hughes did it in 2002, long before many of the fans watching Liu skate in Milan were even born. That is how long the wait had lasted. That is how massive this moment really was. And Alysa Liu did not just take home one gold medal in Italy. She returned to the ice alongside Amber Glenn and helped the United States defend its Olympic team title, leaving those games with 2 gold medals. 2. At only 20 years old, competing in her first Olympics after stepping away from the sport. Wait, stepping away? Yes, and that part of the story is what makes this far more than a simple sports headline. Let's rewind to 2022. Alysa Liu was only 18 years old, and she had already been one of the most talked about young skaters in the world for several years. She first exploded onto the scene when she won the US championship at just 13 years old, becoming the youngest national champion ever. 13! While most kids that age are worried about middle school, she was already holding a national title. The expectations placed on her were enormous, and they kept growing. When the 2022 Winter Olympics arrived, many people expected Liu to be right in the spotlight, representing the United States and delivering a historic performance. But sports rarely follow the storyline people imagine. She finished 4th and missed the podium. For a teenager who had carried intense pressure for years, that result, combined with the relentless training, nonstop expectations, and constant attention, was simply too much. She decided she was finished. She retired. Now, here is something people outside elite sports often fail to understand about burnout. It is not laziness, and it is not weakness. It happens when someone pours everything they have into something for years, and eventually their tank runs empty. Alysa Liu had been competing at the highest level since childhood. She gave up a normal childhood, normal teenage years, and a normal life in general for skating. After Beijing, she chose to step away and just live like a regular person for a while. So she did exactly that. She left the sport completely. No competitions, no expectations, no pressure, just life. And during that time away, something interesting happened. She started remembering why she originally fell in love with skating. It was not about medals or rankings. It was the feeling of gliding across the ice, the freedom, the joy, the excitement. That feeling, which had been buried under years of pressure, slowly began to return. 2 years later, Alysa Liu made her comeback, but she returned as a completely different athlete. She came back on her own terms with a totally new mindset. She was no longer skating to meet anyone else's expectations. She was not performing for critics, judges, or anyone who had doubted her. She was skating for herself because she truly loved it again. That internal shift changed everything about how she competed. You could see it in every performance. She carried a lightness and happiness that is extremely rare at the highest level of any sport. Most athletes competing at the top show visible tension. The pressure, the expectations, and the fear of failure are written across their faces and body language before they even begin. Liu looked like she was enjoying every second. And audiences reacted instantly because authenticity draws people in. When someone truly loves what they are doing, people can feel it. In 2024, during her first full season after returning, she captured the US Championship again. Then she traveled to Boston for the World Championships and accomplished something no American woman had done since Kimi Meisner in 2006. She won the world title. Nearly 20 years had passed since an American woman last stood at the top of that podium, and here was Alysa Liu returning from retirement to do it as if it were completely natural. Then came the Olympics, the 2026 Winter Olympics, the biggest stage in the sport where careers are defined. Alysa Liu, who had walked away from the sport only a few years earlier because she was exhausted and burned out, stood at the top of the podium wearing the gold medal. She became the first American woman to win Olympic figure skating gold since Sarah Hughes. 23 years of waiting ended by a 20-year-old athlete who once quit and returned stronger than ever. The reaction was enormous. Social media exploded. News organizations that rarely cover figure skating ran major stories because this was more than sports. It was a human story about stepping away, rediscovering passion, and returning without the crushing weight of everyone else's expectations. But another reason Liu's story reached a much wider audience is something genuinely fascinating. It was not only her skating, it was her personality and style. Figure skating has traditionally presented a very specific image for decades. The classic ice princess look, elegant appearance, polished hair, sparkling costumes, and a traditional aesthetic. That style is beautiful and part of the sport's identity, but Alysa Liu steps onto the ice looking like she just walked out of a punk concert. Her hair includes bold, streaked sections that she once explained were inspired by the growth rings of a tree. It is artistic, daring, and completely different. She also has a frenulum piercing, the small piece of tissue connecting the upper lip to the gums, something rarely seen in traditional figure skating culture. And the key point is that it is not an act or a costume. It is genuinely who she is. She dresses how she likes and expresses herself freely. Because of that, she connected with the alternative crowd, the punk community, and the emo scene. These are groups that normally would never consider themselves figure skating fans, yet many of them stayed up late just to watch Alysa Liu compete because she felt relatable. That kind of crossover appeal is extremely rare and incredibly powerful, and it happened naturally because she was simply being herself. That authenticity ties directly to the mental transformation she experienced during her time away from skating. She returned without worrying about what people expected her to look like or how they thought she should behave. She returned free, and that freedom shows in everything she does, both on and off the ice. Now, returning to Prague and the upcoming World Championships, Alysa has officially withdrawn from the competition, which begins March 24th at the O2 Arena. Her teammates, Amber Glenn and Isabel Levido, will still compete, meaning the United States will maintain a strong presence at the event. Brady Tennell was the first alternate but declined the opportunity, so Sarah Eberhardt will step in to represent the United States in Liu's place. And Liu is far from the only major athlete skipping the event. Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, who won Olympic gold in the Paris competition in Milan Cortina, have also withdrawn. Sara Conti and Niccolò Macchi, who helped Italy earn bronze in the Olympic team event, will also miss Worlds. In addition, Lona Hendricks has stepped away after a difficult season filled with injuries. This pattern of Olympic athletes skipping the World Championships after the Games is actually very common. The figure skating season is incredibly demanding. The competitive schedule usually begins in early fall and continues all the way into March or April. That means 6 to 7 months of intense competition, international travel, maintaining peak physical condition, and managing the mental pressure of elite sport. When the Olympics are added into that schedule with all the media attention and emotional intensity, the toll becomes even greater. For athletes who have just delivered the biggest performances of their lives, choosing rest instead of jumping straight into another championship is often the smartest decision. For Alysa Liu, this choice makes even more sense. She already understands what happens when burnout is ignored and athletes push beyond their limits. She learned that lesson earlier in her career and clearly doesn't want to repeat it. Stepping away when needed once allowed her to return and achieve everything she accomplished this season. Taking a well-deserved break after winning 2 Olympic gold medals simply makes sense. The future ahead of her is incredibly exciting. She's only 20 years old. That means she could have another decade of elite competition if she chooses. And if her comeback has shown anything, it's that she will always do things on her own terms and in her own time. The next Olympic cycle has already begun, and the 2030 Winter Olympics are approaching. Based on what we've seen over the last 2 years, the idea of Alysa Liu entering another Olympic cycle with more experience, more confidence, and an even stronger sense of self is incredibly exciting for the sport. But for now, Prague will have to wait. The O2 Arena will host a world championship without its defending champion, while the rest of the field competes for a title that Liu currently holds. That's not a criticism of the other competitors. It simply shows how dominant she has been and how high the standard has become. Alysa Liu returned from retirement and reminded the entire world what figure skating can look like when an athlete brings their true self to the ice. She captured a world title, she won Olympic gold, she attracted audiences who had never cared about figure skating before. She did it while looking exactly the way she wanted and staying completely true to who she is. And now she's taking a break, which, after everything she's given to the